All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Rogue member highlight for September 2023. I'm very excited to have Mike and Sharon with us today. We probably met or interacted first. Like, it's been a couple years since you first joined. You'll have to remind me exactly when you joined. I didn't go back and look before we started. But I'm really excited to have a conversation with both of you to hear about just in general, kind of your experience with Parkinson's and exercise, and then specifically Rogue classes, to hear how that has supported both of you in continuing to live the lives that you want to live. So, Mike, if we could start with you telling us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Mike Pangman. I live in Edmonton, Alberta, in Canada. Uh, my no,
Your
my
diagnosis
diagnosis date is
November,
2019
in November.
in November. Pretty active lifestyle that we live. It's not over the edge, but we tend to do as much as we can outside as possible. I think one of the big changes for me has been downhill skiing, which I've done for 40 years, 50 years, and finally had to give it up 3 years ago because my balance was starting to go, my confidence was starting to go. So the old body was just starting to say, I'm done. Let's do something else. And so that's how my youngest son was one of the first to notice these changes in me. He's a paramedic, so he's qualified to see these things. And he said, Mom, I think Dad has, and maybe we should talk to a doc. And that's when things started changing around the world with COVID. And we started looking for information on COVID. And this is where my wife certainly comes in, because she gets a project like that in her mouth and she does not let go, pit bull and all. And I learned to say, okay, Mike, you stay out of the way. She's doing exactly what she wants to do. And, here we are. And yeah.
I think we had been very active members of the YMCA,
Oh, yeah.
and we would go like 5 mornings a week. And then when COVID hit, we realized, wait a minute, we're going to lose all of our fitness. And Mike was starting to have some pretty specialized needs at that point. And so we started looking around and just couldn't find anything that was going to keep up our fitness levels during COVID. And luckily, we found a physio who specializes in Parkinson's, who started coming to our house. And she was the one that said, oh, you've got to go to Rogue. You'll love them. And the rest is history.
Oh, wow. And so that was pretty early in 2020 then.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, we found out, we started using your classes on a monthly basis in May of 2020, and then we joined and took out a year's membership in October. We wanted to give it a real, a try before we jumped in with both of our feet, and we've never looked back.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And I know that we spoke back then when you first joined, but it's just
Right.
kind of amazing to think that that's 3.5 years ago now, that we've
Right.
been exercising together for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And
The kitchen floor.
Our living
Our,
room looks
our
totally
living room
different.
floor looks like a basketball court.
Oh yeah, everything that was in there is pretty much gone, and now in the storage in our dining room is all of our yoga mats and stuff for Rogue, and on it goes. But it
yeah,
works.
yeah, that's so awesome. And yeah, the convenience of being able to do it in the home, and also to, be able to do it when something like COVID hits, and that's, when we started the online membership, because we had our classes that were in person, we had to close all of them, started online. But yeah, May is really the first month. So it's just amazing that you heard about it that quickly. And it wasn't that long after your diagnosis. And you didn't have to go too many months without being able to go and exercise at the Y where you were usually exercising. So I'm sure, just that transition of being able to get started with things that you could do on a regular basis that were Parkinson specific, that could keep challenging you at a high level, I'm sure that really has made a difference over the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about it.
And, I would add that people might say, well, why do I do it? Because I don't have Parkinson's. But I'll tell you a very quick story. We were in Alaska this spring, and I was on a hike, and we had to bushwhack on this hike. And I mean, like, go up and over. There was no trail. And everybody in my little group was huffing and puffing. And my body was saying, you know what? This is just like doing Rogue. You're good.
Mm-hmm.
And it was then that I knew that Rogue was really good for me too.
That is so awesome. So yeah, tell me, so when you guys first started joining, like what is kind of your weekly exercise routine in terms of what classes you do, how you do them? Give me a little more detail about that.
Well, that's why we've hooked up with Rogue. It's not for you to tell us what we can and can't do, but to come up with this is what we do Monday morning, this is what we do Tuesday afternoon or Friday afternoon. No, we don't do that. We use averages, for the lack of a better word, and we average probably 5 sessions, 6 sessions a week, and it's varied. We do the dance, the boxing, the power, the hit. What else do we have in there? The brain.
Yeah. Yes.
And then yoga, and it sort of goes into a bundle, and it may change every other day, and so we get a complete variety. And also of, okay, it's not going to work. That's not going to work for us today. We'll find another one, and Sharon just plugs into here. And there you guys are, and they all fit, and see who has the best class that fits with us today. I don't have to wait for a while, and no offense, don't have to wait for you. So, I mean, you guys are really accessible. So as a whole, it's the entire enchilada.
If I could just add to that, the initial conversation we had with you, Claire, way back in May of 2020, we sort of outlined how many times a week we should be looking at power, what we should be doing around cardio and whatnot. And that conversation kind of informed what we do in a week. So we track it. It goes on a calendar. We know exactly how many minutes we did and what we did. And so that if I'm looking at the calendar and going, we haven't done dance in a while, let's just pick up a dance this morning, then we'll do that because we can see at a glance where we've been. So that really is really helpful if you're doing the online video,
Yeah, so you kind of have a variety, knowing, okay, we're trying to do a good variety of the different classes that we have access to: boxing, hit, power moves, dance. Kind of make sure to get some things that are a little more high intensity in each week and get that variety. So you have kind of a plan, but also on a given day, there might be some days where you're like, well, this is really what we're in the mood to do, or we're in the mood for power moves and a little bit more stretching as opposed to a high intensity. So it can be kind of flexible on the day of.
And also, I think there's a really important point to be made, and that is that when you're doing classes away from home, that's your thing for the morning. You've got to get in your car, go and drive. Where this way, we can, it's kind of like brushing our teeth. We do it without even thinking about it. But we may say, we've only got 30 minutes this morning because we've got an appointment. Where another day we can do an hour. So, but you're always doing it. And that's the important thing. And so you're fitting it in around life, all your commitments that you have. So that's the other thing that works really, really well for us.
Yeah. And so I think we kind of talked about it, but just to be clear with anyone who's watching, so you two use the recordings exclusively. I think every once in a while you join for some of our other meetings on different topics live. But in terms of exercise in the morning, you both like to get up and exercise usually pretty early in the morning, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you kind of get up and exercise with the recording first thing, get that out of the way. The length of the class can, vary depending on what other commitments you have. If you need to do kind of a quicker class and then get going with things, on the days where you have a full hour, you'll do that. And you do a good variety. And then, you had mentioned, Sharon, that you join the classes with them. And this is something that we recommend pretty much across the board, even with our in-person membership. when spouses are available and they're interested, we invite spouses to join classes with us here. The exercise that we're doing, although it is Parkinson's specific, the things that can happen with Parkinson's are also the things that can happen for any of us with aging, change in posture and flexibility and balance. So I don't think there's ever been an exercise that we do that I would consider Parkinson's specific that isn't actually also beneficial for someone who doesn't have Parkinson's. I feel so much better when I do the power moves myself too.
And that's true. And the other side of that, the other sort of added benefit is that when Mike and I are doing it side by side, I'm thinking back to what his physio has been telling him. And if I see hands that are not quite where they should be, I can say, Mike, Susan would say, move like you mean it. And all of a sudden, there's a little bit of a care partner happening here, but that's all right, because what it does is it helps him to maximize what he's doing.
Well, I know that every second Monday I've got Susan coming down my back. So if I don't behave myself, Sharon snitches on me and I can't win.
Well, it sounds like you are winning. You have multiple people who care a lot about you and your health.
We're winning on the one hand, I think, for the benefit of doing the work. Whereas if, never mind, it's gone.
Have you lost
back to it? You have to excuse me through this whole thing. My mental cognition has not been wonderful. It's probably the most impacted symptom now, where I still need a lot of work, but it means that my short-term memory is not healthy, and I have to be very careful about that as to what I'm saying, because halfway through a sentence I can lose it. So I just try and tell everybody who I'm talking to, this is where I'm at. If you don't like it, there's the door, because there's nothing I can do about it except practice and work together, Sharon, as we've done for years.
Yeah. And I think that's what's really special, I think, is to share your true experience, share your wins and also share your challenges, because that's what's true for everyone. Everyone is experiencing some things that are good and some things that are really hard. And the more that we can be open about the things that are hard, I think it allows other people to feel comfortable sharing. And then that's how we can actually work on it and just, acknowledge those things that are going on, and, that we can live our best lives, even despite those things happening. So thank you so much for sharing. And as you're talking, anytime, like if you think of something, feel free to interrupt me. If something pops in your head and you want to say it, feel free to.
Careful.
So I did want to, what you were saying there. So you had started working with a physiotherapist back in 2020, who told you about Rogue. And then it sounds like you're still working with her currently. Is that correct?
Yep.
So how does that, so she comes every other week to work with you in the home?
Yes.
Yeah.
Every other Monday. Yep. She's here for an hour.
Awesome.
And she, because our living room is pretty much all the furniture gets moved anyways for this gym business. It just kind of stays there, and then she and Mike come in and work. She's being the one that has said, his posture is better, his gait is better, his your moods are better, and she's the one that really sees the difference in those symptoms. Where he and I might not pick up on that. He used to shuffle his feet before he started with Rogue, and he doesn't shuffle his feet anymore. So it's been a huge plus having her. We work very cooperatively with her and with you.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because it is, both directions. If things are getting better or worse, it often happens slowly over time and isn't that noticeable. So a lot of times that's true. Where we don't really feel things that are changing. But when someone kind of is coming in and is trained to observe those things, and maybe she's even kind of doing assessments every, once in a while and getting some objective measures, then you have objective data that says, yes, this is getting better, or you're maintaining in this area, or this area has gotten a little bit worse. Let's make sure to work on it. We definitely, with all of our online members, I think the ideal situation would be for them to have access to a physical therapist that they work with in person, whether it's at their home or going to a clinic or in a gym or, some setting, but some amount of kind of check in where there is someone watching you exercise and watching you do things and helping you figure out little tweaks that you can do, because she can help you get more out of using the videos with Rogue. And you also, by doing the videos with Rogue, you may like try new and different things. And sometimes something's hard and you can tell her, I tried this, it was hard. I want to work on getting better at this so that I can do it well in class. So that's that combination.
Happens, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then, what happens.
Yeah, that is so cool to hear, because that is what I really hope that everyone has access to. And we have had some members, who will be online working with us. And then they say, oh, now I have Medicare and I'll have access to working with this therapist now. And I'll say, that is wonderful. But I don't think that necessarily means that you shouldn't do Rogue anymore. That combination of the two together, is really good. And exercise that just happens on a, nearly daily basis is a very important foundation. And then working with a therapist usually isn't going to be something that happens every single day. Usually that is going to be, maybe a little bit higher frequency for a couple months. Like in the US, a lot of times that's how therapy is done. Or maybe it can be, once a week or every other week or once a month, kind of more over an extended period of time. But having that person to work with makes a huge difference. And they can have a really kind of keen eye watching you and giving you feedback on how to do things better, but also helping you see, the benefits that you're experiencing too. And then, like you mentioned, exercising with him, I think when partners exercise together, I think not only are you there where you can give him a little bit of feedback on really, again, optimizing his movement and how he does the class. And I mean, Mike, do you ever give Sharon feedback?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It works both ways.
Excellent. Yeah. And then also I think though, Sharon, too, like, are you impressed by our classes and how challenging they are and what Mike does? Because I think that's what, when spouses join a class, they're like, wow, that's harder than I thought it was going to be. And, this is really good for me too.
Well, when we first started with Rogue, and I can remember doing one of your very first high intensity classes, I thought, I can't cope. I cannot do this. And I thought, like, in fact, the first class we did of yours, Claire, was your 30-minute basic class. It was your first online class. And we did it and we thought, oh my goodness, what are we doing? And honestly, it took some working up and working to get into it. And now we're fine. But what I really love about it is the fact that there's a scope there that if I want to make it harder, I can make it harder. So I can make it work for me. And that's been the beauty of it, honestly, and it's fun. Like the dancing is really fun. We look forward to that, and I think that's got to be a part of it. But I think one thing that Mike hasn't said that he probably could add, and if I can start that, is the fact that he said that 3 years ago he pretty much quit downhill skiing. Well, Mike left downhill skiing for a year and then he went back to it and he relearned how to ski with Parkinson's. And he went with an association. He had an instructor that went out with him as a volunteer every single time Mike went skiing. And you just gave up skiing this past winter. Downhill skiing. And he had another 3 years of that, which is really incredibly special.
It is. That is so exciting. I remember when you emailed me a photo on the slopes.
That's right.
I got to see, that you had gotten back to it. And that's exactly what we're here for. We're not here exercise just to exercise. We're here to exercise so that when you go bushwhacking or you want to go skiing, you have the strength and stamina to do the things that you want to do in your real life.
That's right.
It's got to be fun.
Yeah.
If it isn't fun, I won't do it.
Yeah.
Or I'll do it sooner.
Yeah. Fun and engaging and meaningful. So oh my gosh, you said so many wonderful things. I just want to see if there were any other questions I was going to ask. I think, the other one, when you mentioned actually just the speech and talking about kind of sometimes with sentences that you might start and then lose track a little bit. Have you utilized our speech classes at all?
I haven't, but I think it's something that we're going to start to look at.
You do. Mike does speech therapy every Thursday afternoon. Okay. He's in, we have it's a program here locally. And so it's an hour and a half and they do it on Zoom and he's been doing it for a really long time, haven't you? And it's called Loud Crowd. And So he just plugs in and away you go for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's a local thing that we want to take part of that program. It's called the CRIS program, and they offer many other things, but they zeroed in on speech. And so he's been able to access that, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, wonderful. And yeah, with our speech classes, we have them live, but we also record them. And so if you ever felt like, you had a little bit more time during the week, and if that's one of the things you've noticed more of a change in, if you want to practice it more, the more that you practice these things, the better. So with our recorded class, they are about an hour. And if you didn't want to spend a whole hour, you could start a class and honestly do like about 20 minutes of it. And you could then maybe come back to that same class the next time and do the next part of it. Stephanie also teaches some of the same types of things as in Loud Crowd. So I'm sure there'd be things you'd be familiar with the May, Me, My, Mo, Moo and counting
Yeah,
and things like that. And then they
exactly.
also do swallow exercises. They incorporate brain games into it. So I do think that would be a fun class to check out. And you could kind of see not at all to ever stop doing the one that you're doing on Thursdays, but to maybe just get a little bit more practice throughout the week. I think that would support you because anything that you want to get better at does require pretty consistent practice. But it doesn't have to be a big time commitment. It could be that you kind of do sections of a class, throughout the week. But I think that would be helpful.
Oh, that's a good idea. Thanks, Claire.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then you also had mentioned before we started recording that the other thing that you find beneficial about Rogue is the educational side of things. And so I just wanted to ask you kind of what aspects of that you have found to be helpful.
We've done the Pro PD. Um, uh, we've looked into that with you. We've participated in it and have found it to be really, really useful. And any of the work that you have done around that, and you've also offered, I think. The biggest thing for us was the fact of looking at when you're looking at Parkinson's is the three-legged stool where fitness, medication, and food, they all interplay. And how does that work? And you introduced us to that concept, and it's a concept that we continually use, don't we, Mike? That whole thing of food, medication, and fitness.
I'm still going to bed hungry.
Still going to bed. You're all right, hon.
Yeah. So we do like the monthly educational meetings. So those are when you see topics that are of interest to you, you're also watching those educational meetings and yeah.
We're very lucky because we have a very active provincial association on Parkinson's here. and we take advantage of, the Michael J. Fox Foundation. We do a really broad range on things that are interesting to us. But our idea is always to learn as much as we can. That's one of the things that helps us to live well with Parkinson's.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for both coming on and sharing so much. Is there anything else you'd like to say, or, what advice would you give for someone maybe who's pretty newly diagnosed? Is there anything you would tell them to kind of help them get started?
There is a fellow who you've already interviewed. He came in, he said, I got to get on my soapbox. So he got up in his soapbox, and he was good enough that I thought, I'll just use that when it's my turn. And basically, it's, words to live by, and
Having a can-do.
having a can-do attitude.
Yeah.
And you're going to get out of it whatever you put into it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Words to live by. We all can put in, a good amount of effort and get a lot out of that effort that we put in.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
True.
Well, thank you both so much for joining and sharing your story. And we look forward to people getting a chance to watch and learn from both of you.
Well, thank you,
Thanks.
Claire. Without you, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So there you go. Thank you for Rogue.
Yeah, you are welcome.
Bye now.
Bye.
Take care.